For many of the successful families we work with, part of their plan is leaving wealth to their heirs someday. And what I know is that many families have the bulk of their wealth in IRAs, in 401ks, and tax-deferred accounts. That's how many of you have saved. But in the last couple of years, there's been some laws that have passed, one in particular called the Secure Act, which passed in 2019, that has changed the game entirely when it comes to leaving IRAs and 401ks, and you need to be prepared for it so that you can keep more of your wealth in the bloodline, disinherit Uncle Sam as best you can when it comes time to leave wealth and legacy to your heirs. Keep it right here, we're talking about it today. Good day everybody, Chris Heerlein here, partner at REAP Financial, host of Wealth Radio on News Radio KLBJ and Retire Ready TV. On KXAN, that's News Channel 36 right here in Austin. Thanks for tuning into our channel today. If you like what you see, hit the subscribe button and give us a thumbs up down below. Now, the 10-year rule, this completely upended the game when it comes to legacy planning back in 2019. And believe it or not, people are still becoming aware of this rule. And you could either think today, as I talk you through this, about leaving wealth to your kids, or maybe you have elderly parents in their 80s, 90s that are potentially going to leave wealth to you. Now, when you inherit money or you leave money to heirs, and it's in a traditional IRA, a Roth IRA, a 401k, a SEP IRA, a simple IRA, the list keeps going, but any tax-deferred account, you need to be aware that these assets, when left or inherited by you, are now required to be completely taken out within 10 years. Now, before this law passed, there was something pretty amazing out there. It was called a stretch IRA. What the stretch IRA did is allow you to inherit money and then only had to take a little bit out year over year. The IRS allowed you to stretch out this IRA over your lifetime, which meant the money could continue growing. And by only having to take a little bit out, you could control how much you were going to be taxed. And a lot of times the growth in this account would offset the amount you even took out. That was a wonderful strategy, and that's no longer available. And that's why we're talking about this today and to so many of our successful families. Because now that that money has to be taken out within 10 years, three things happen. Number one, you have to have a plan as to how you're going to withdraw the money. Do you take everything out the year you inherit it? Do you space it out over 10 years, or do you just let it defer and take it all out at the end of 10 years? That's the first thing you got to look at. The second thing is, who are you going to leave these assets to? Who's going to inherit this money from mom and dad? Because depending on who inherits it, it may dictate how much it's going to be taxed, even if it's going to be taxed at all. And number three, if you're leaving a Roth IRA, there needs to be coordination, potentially written coordination within your trust as to how this money should be taken out so that you have control today, and even when you're 6 feet under, as to making sure that money is maximized for the heirs. So let me talk to you about how inheriting this money can create a taxable event. When it's IRA and 401k money, that money has never been taxed. So if you're the inheritor, if your kids are inheriting, and they now receive all this money, likely it's going to stay in the IRA when it's received. But now that 10-year clock starts. And if they take a little bit out each year, every year it's going to be taxable as income. If they were to distribute it all in the first year they inherit it, depending on the size of the account, that could create a massive tax bomb because every dollar will count as income. Now think about it. If you inherited an IRA from mom and dad today, or your kids inherit it from you 20 years from now, 30 years from now, what tax bracket are you in currently, or what tax bracket could they be in? Chances are they may be in their highest earning years. You may be in your highest earning years. So you got to be careful as to how much of this money you take out, because you could push yourself easily to the highest tax bracket and potentially give 40 cents on every dollar back to the government. So coordinating the timing of this is very important. Secondly, think about if you were to not take anything out. If you don't take anything out, well, good for you. Maybe the account has doubled in value, but now you got to pay tax on the biggest number. You may have inadvertently set yourself up to be taxed a lot higher. Now, when we look at Roth IRAs, we love Roth IRAs, but that 10-year rule that I'm talking about, that still applies to a Roth IRA. The money will have to be distributed over that 10-year period. Now, with a Roth IRA, it could be more advantageous to take it at the end of 10 years. If that money was able to defer for 10 years, it could double in value, and then it all comes out tax-free. And that's what I mentioned. A lot of families, if they have a Roth, they may dictate in their living trust or their revocable trust or irrevocable trust for that matter, that the heirs can't touch that money for a certain period of time to maximize the tax-free benefit of the estate. Now, I mentioned also that depending on who you leave this money to, it may be taxed more or less or not taxed at all. There's a couple provisions, but two that we see the most is if you left this money to a brother or a sister or a beneficiary that's within 10 years of your age upon you passing, that 10-year rule doesn't exist. If you left it to a minor child or a minor in general, the 10-year rule doesn't go into effect until they turn adult age. But also keep in mind that you really can't leave money to a minor without things getting tied up. So that's why if you're planning on doing that, you really want to have this money potentially left to a living trust or a revocable trust. Always consult with an estate attorney on that. But you can see how this has really added complexity, potentially some opportunity to the legacy and wealth enhancement game. And if you're planning on leaving money in IRAs and 401ks to your heirs, you need to be aware of this. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to get your hands on our tax buckets report, updated here. And the reason is we're going to dive into how different types of money can be left in different types of ways. And it may really dictate how you're saving today, how you're spending tomorrow, and how you're saving for your long-term retirement. Get your hands on this. Email me, retire@reapfinancial.com. That's retire@reapfinancial.com. My team will have it on its way to your inbox.